Welcome to the Inspire Roundtable Show, where we delve into inspirational discussions, tips, and advice from a diverse array of industry experts, professionals, and forward thinkers. Our mission is to help you solve real problems, overcome chaotic situations, and put you on a better path towards a more fulfilling work-life balance. Learn from the insights and experiences of our esteemed guests and explore a wide range of topics from career development to personal growth, all with the aim of empowering you to navigate the challenges of modern life and achieve a greater sense of purpose and satisfaction. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired. Let's embark on this journey together and discover the tools and strategies that can help you unlock your full potential. It's time you work to live, not live to work. The Inspire Roundtable Show starts now.
Good morning, everybody. Happy April. I'm so glad that our show did not fall on April Fool's Day because we are not fooling you with what's going on this month. It is a wonderful start to spring. I hope everybody's been healthy and happy. I've been feeling the energy, the lowdown of the energy. Have you guys?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Dee she's been feeling that energy for a while now since you've been kind of in the down and out for a little, taking care of yourself, huh?
Yeah, but I am ready to just jump back in a little slow, but
right.
Taking my time and but doing really, really well.
That's
just happy
good.
To be back.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. We missed you last month. Charisse is having a little bit of technical difficulty, so hopefully she can. I don't know what is the technical difficulties.
We are having a lot of tech difficulties today.
That's
the energy.
It is. It's just sucking all of us down. There we go. Speaking of energy, Heather, we had. I know we talked off camera about how the energy has been, but I've been this past month. I've just been, and I don't know. I feel like I'm here, but it's just, ugh. So
it's been really, really heavy, and following like the corona mass ejection, the CMEs, and human resonance, there is a lot of activity going on, and I swear we've had 2 last week. And I want to say they were like 3 days apart. And usually they say that the energy behind it takes a week for it to unfold. And we had 2 big ones last week. And so we're just now starting to feel all of this energetic behind it. And what's coming from that is a lot of purging. I'm having lots of clients that are old wounds that are coming up, old injuries are coming up. Lots of old stuff is like purging right now.
I'll tell you, I don't know. I'm hoping this purging is a good thing.
It is. It's a very good thing because we trap emotions in the body. And a lot of times we just, as society, we push them down. And so now is the opportunity to let them come up and out.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a great, if the audience looks at it this way, spring just came up. And so for me, our last topic was declutter. And I think that fits in perfectly with our discussion and how the energy is flowing because we're really decluttering all this excess, whatever it is that we have going on in our lives. And that's what I think really connects with this show to this month. And, getting rid of that grieving, that loss, that everything that we've had built up over the winter and just kind of letting it go. Right. So, so we have a lot to talk about. Charisse, are you good or no? I don't think she can hear us. I think she's having some audio. Nova might be able to help her there, but if not, we'll get you back on, Charisse. I know that you probably can't hear me, which is but it's the worst when you're broadcasting and you either can't hear or you can't speak into your microphone. So that's the worst part about it. But we'll get you fixed. So what we'll do right now is I want to kind of just cover some of the stuff that we've been talking about and what we're going to be talking about this month. But I want to reach out to, since I have this is the beginning of the show, that April is a very special month because it is Autism Awareness Month. And for those of you now, I really, because this is your forte, really, neurodivergency and so forth. It really is your forte. Do you want to explain a little bit about like what neurodivergency is and autism and how that kind of intertwines?
Well, neurodivergency is an umbrella term that basically means that in layman's terms, it just basically means your brain is wired differently. You interpret the world differently. You encounter emotions, social situations, everyday functioning in a different way. And you normally have to find ways to cope and deal with that. A lot of times we do what's called masking, which is putting on the mask so that we fit in with what society expects.
Right.
Autism is very well known for masking. Autism is also an umbrella term. It's a huge number of symptomologies and I just lost the word. So, there's a large number of things that go on under the umbrella of neurodivergent and autism. Neurodivergent is ADHD, autism, bipolar, OCD. A lot of those mental health diagnoses that basically just mean that your brain is wired differently and you have to encounter the world in a different way.
Right. And so we really want to put that awareness out for this month. April's always been that month. And so before we go into our discussion for today, I just want to take some time to show you a little bit how autism is really an exceptional special need. It is beautiful, really. And sometimes I wish that I could think this way.
That's really nice, though. I love that. Thank you. That's the first time I'm seeing that.
For Nova Mahoney, being creative is no problem.
Drawing has been really fun. It's been my main creative outlet besides writing.
It's helped her cope with a lot of things in life, even the things she never quite expected.
I've been familiar with my circumstances for a long time.
Nova lives with autism. To some, the condition represents a barrier, a roadblock. But to her, it's anything but that.
I wouldn't say a barrier, but it's been an obstacle. And it's definitely been difficult, but it's not impossible.
Made possible thanks to having a support system in her mom by her side. Nova has even been fortunate in turning her passion into a living.
A lot of the stuff that I turned to was art and creative stuff, such as cartoons and comics and web comics and stuff of the sort. So I just happened to naturally, pick it up and be like, this is something that I really like, and getting involved in those communities helped me meet people that were like me.
Together with her mom, she's created and published her own book, centered around a young autistic girl named Astrid, a character she created based on herself.
I think that taking our own experiences and our past skills and putting them together really brought to life Astrid, especially in a very emotionally connected way.
It's something not many in her position can say the same.
If you think it's hard being a normal person looking for a job, it's 10 times harder having a disability.
There's been a stigma when it comes to hiring people with disabilities. A stigma, Mahoney says, is centered around fear.
They're afraid because they feel that it's going to cost a lot of money for accommodations, when naturally it's only probably going to cost you $500 to put a ramp in, or maybe even just a passionate supervisor to train differently, visually.
But rather than punish individuality, the Mahoneys are embracing it.
we're just as human as everybody else, and we have likes and interests, and we struggle with things, and we are good at things. And I hope that it helps become a gateway for people into fitting and being seen in society as equal.
A notion Nova is changing every day with each stroke of her pen. In Pasco County, Calvin Lewis, Spectrum News.
So I really want to thank Nova for taking the time to speak with Spectre News about autism for this month. It really was a great eye-opener for her generation as well as for our own. So I don't want to spend too much longer on this, but I did want to throw that out because it is very important to me, and I know to others on the panel as well, because we have a connection with autism in some way with our, in our lives. So thank you very much for allowing us to kind of tap into that. We're going to bring, I guess Charisse is still having some issues, but we're going to bring Charisse back on here. Charisse, are you doing okay? Can you hear us now?
I can hear you, and now I can see you. I'm on my phone, and I'm on low battery. What can I say? It's Mercury retrograde right now.
I know!
It is all the things right now. So something must be really favorable getting ready to happen. That's how I'm going to spend this. And I don't even think I need to spend it. So that's okay. That.
As long as you are with us. And as long as you're with us, we can definitely see you, we can hear you, and you can hear us. Sure. It will be a flow. So we're going to talk about something that has affected all of us in some way, and that is grief and loss. And whether it's somebody that you love that you've lost, or whether it's a job, or whether it's your health, relationships, we've lost something in our lives, and we all grieve differently. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we get into talking about that, I do want to put a disclaimer out there that please do not take this as your professional health or mental, advice. Make sure that if you have to go to somebody, make sure it's to your doctor, your family doctor, or your mental health provider. We are just giving it from our perspective and how we lived it and what we've done through our experiences. So this is a very touching situation for me. It's because it's new. I know many of us have lost people that we love in our lives, and I am no exception to that. I did lose my parents about 4 months ago, 5 months ago. It goes by very fast. But I lost my mother first. And it was a big struggle because I'm in Florida, and I was trying to make it to New York. And it's I don't fly, so I had to drive. And during the time while we were in the car, my mother passed, so I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to my mother. But the day before, she did call me and she asked when I was coming home, and I said I was leaving that night. And we did say I love you before she passed, but it was a difficult situation. However, when I got there, my father was very comforting. I had my family around, which was good. My mother, she was ready. Nobody wants to suffer. She had cancer. Nobody wants to suffer. So it was, I always believe things happen for a reason. So I believed, it was a good thing. So she didn't suffer. But the biggest thing that really got me was that when we look at loss and grief, we always feel like this pain, or we feel like, some of us don't want to deal with it. We don't want, to talk about it. But for me, I felt like that situation, even though it was a bad situation for me, like a tough situation for me, I felt it was meant to be. And I'll tell you why. The last week that I was there saying goodbye to my mother, I spent it with my father. And it was a week that I hadn't seen my father in a very long time. And it was a week that we recalled memories of our family, because my mother had passed. And we didn't have a very big funeral or anything. So it was the family talking about those memories. And my father brought up some stuff that I totally didn't remember. And as I stood there hugging him, and I thought to myself, I love this man so much that that you don't realize how much the people in your life mean to you until you're at that moment. And when I left, no more than 3 weeks later, my father passed. And it was so difficult for me, because he was my first hero, my first love, my first of any man that I ever knew. And when I was adopted, I held his leg. I was 6 months or 9 months, held his leg. He picked me up and said, "This is my daughter. This is my everything. I know this is the one." So when my mother passed, I realized maybe it was my mother's way of saying, spend time with your dad. Say goodbye, because you didn't get to do it with me. So for me, the grieving and the loss, there was a reason. As much as I hated to feel that, there was a reason, and I thank my mother for giving me that moment, those times with my dad just that week, because maybe she knew he was going to go. I don't know about you guys, but give me some feedback. Let me know what you think. Am I going crazy? Are these things that are normal? How do you guys feel about grief and loss?
Well, Kat, I was right here when all of this went down for you. And my heart was just reaching out for you the entire time. I can feel like the energy that your mom was sending out was really important, because it fostered that reconnection with your dad. And on my end, when I lost my mom, there was this entire time that I spent thinking I wasn't doing it right. I wasn't grieving the right way, because I'm a highly sensitive person, an HSP. And when an HSP hits emotional overwhelm, a lot of us will put an emotional buffer between ourselves and our emotions.
Right.
And so I spent a lot of time thinking I wasn't doing this right, when really what I was doing was I was examining my feelings as they came up. But the thing about grief is while it is an individual path that we have to walk, we do not have to walk it alone. And
Right.
for me, communication is key. Communicating and connecting and choosing to take those small steps forward are what are going to kind of get you through. It's also very liberating to be very honest about how you're feeling.
Absolutely. I think so too. And there was, again, like I say, I think things happen for a reason. And at that moment, someone like Dee, aside from my own family, someone like Dee was there during that time. And she was very comforting. And, she would tell, I'm here if you need anyone to talk to. But that brings me to another thing is when we're losing something, when we lose something in our lives, and people say to us, I'm here if you need to talk, right? We don't normally reach out to someone and say, hey, Heather, I'd just like to talk to you. I'm feeling overwhelmed. That's not something as humans that we were like, even if we know that person's not going to judge you or that person is there, we don't reach out to a lot of people because we are too, we are the type of creatures that's like, no, I can do this. I don't need that help. I don't need that comfort besides your family or your spouse or significant other. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But it is okay to reach out to others because we all go through it. Right. If I reach out to you, Dee, you would have been there.
I would have been in your house.
Right. Absolutely.
The thing is that I would like to say one thing about that reaching out to people that you wouldn't normally reach out to. If it's a true friend, you're not a burden. You are not a burden.
Absolutely.
And the best way we can help someone through their grief is to put our shoulder under their arm, metaphorically or physically, and say, I've got your back.
Right. Heather, you feel, because I know that you're you feel vibes, you feel passion, you feel that sadness. You're very much that type of person. When whether it's with your clients or your friends or anybody around you, what do you say when someone says, I've got to get over this, or I can't, like, how do we tap into that part of ourselves to forgive and just move on?
The first thing is to not judge your feelings, to accept that there is no time limit of getting over something. Like pushing yourself is honestly the way society has taught us to do, which then therefore makes us suppress it even more. And that's the problem, Energetically, it shows up metaphysically as a lot of emotions get trapped in the body. And you can see it in the lungs. When you think about your heart is surrounded by your lungs. So you can actually have a lot of grief that sits there. Lots of breathing issues. You can notice that you shallow breathe. You can have asthma. There's jaw tension that can happen energetically.
Mm-hmm.
You can have tightness in your throat. There's so many body signs that lead into all of this grief. And so knowing that when you store it and you don't process it enough, that's where it's coming from. Is there a lot of feedback on your end?
I do hear a little bit of feedback.
But not too bad.
Yeah, not too much.
That's so weird. It's like I can hear energy or something.
She's feeling it.
I know, right? Feel all the vibes. And so when you think about, if we don't actually allow this grief to process in the body, it gets stored in a way that your body is going to actually cry for help. And so, you hear about all the 5 stages of grief. And my brother passed away last February from cancer. And I'll tell you, it was almost a blessing to remind me of, I have to allow this process. And he's younger than me. He should not have died this young, and I tell you, with him being on hospice, and he waited for me to watch him die, to let him go. Like, he wanted me to give him permission. Sometimes that's harder to be with them and watch them, because then that plays with your psyche as well. So a lot of times I feel that our loved ones know that it will hit you even harder to watch them take the last breath, because you play that over in your mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot in that last stage, they know what the effect is going to be, because there's so many. I've dug into death doula and the last stages, and every one of them will say that when they're ready, they're loved ones and angels are at the foot of their bed or around their head, and they know that they're going to go. And so it's not scary. They know what's going to happen, and they almost know that what's going to be the best for the ones that are left behind. And so it's for us to go, grief is a good thing. Grief showed us that we loved hard.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be a person, a family member, whether it be a job, whether it be, we can even grieve the fact that we didn't become who we thought we would be.
Right.
You can say, oh, I thought I would be here by the age of 30, or I thought I would be doing this by the age of, 50, whatever. So there's a lot of facets of grieving, but the biggest thing is take time to cry. We are, as a society, think crying is weakness. Let it go. Find time. If you don't want to talk to someone, then write it out. There's breath work to allow it to flow up and out. There's things called somatic yoga. Let your body tremble. We hold grief in the chest. Shallow breathing. If you can't take deep breaths, that's a sign you're holding too much grief in the chest. Let your heart expand. Feel into it to allow it to release. There's somatic yoga, because sometimes that grief affects our foundation, which is at our root chakra. So if you feel that your whole world has been flipped upside down, you could be grieving because you had to leave your hometown or everybody you know, and you move. So there's grief in that. Well, you may be trapping that in the hips. You can have hip pain. Allow your legs to tremble to release the trauma. We hold it in the body, and it's so much importance right now to just let it up and out. But the first thing is to never judge yourself and say, oh, I've just been doing this for too long. I should be over it by now.
Right.
That's just a sign you're holding on to it. Acknowledge it and just allow. That's the biggest thing.
Heather, I'm really glad you mentioned that grief can come in a lot of different forms, because me, myself, I've obviously experienced, people passing around me and experiencing that grief myself. But one of the things that is really big for me is sort of grieving the fact that I didn't get to have a relatively normal childhood, being neurodivergent and having to go through an education system that was just built against me and didn't work with me, and socially as well, in terms of making connections with other people, like my peers, or being bullied by other people, or even by people that I thought were my own friends. And of course that built up, and in high school, when I was obviously still a kid, it sort of festered and built into anxiety. And so I stored it all in this grief, and I tried to push it down and be like, well, I have to be this different version of myself. I can't let myself be myself. And for a long time, I didn't let myself just be me. And up until about 19, is when I started finally acknowledging what I experienced, and the fact that I stopped letting myself be myself and experiencing this version of me, and repressing it. And obviously, of course, now I'm working on healing that by addressing it and being like, what I went through it was painful. And of course, there are days where I grieve, I didn't get to go to prom like other kids, or I didn't get to have friends and go out to the mall and stuff. And it's tough. And I know I'm not the only one, but in doing that and embracing the things that I pushed off in those years, it helps heal a part of me. And it helps, acknowledge that and sort of, come to terms with it a lot better. And, there's a lot of different forms of grief because, it's not even just that as well. It's, what you said, acknowledging like, you could be mourning a different version of yourself. I do that every day, and it's very difficult. When you compare yourself to a version of yourself that you thought was going to be, and you grieve that because that's what you thought was going to be, but it didn't come to fruition. But yeah, it's difficult. And if you work on addressing that and letting it come through, it can really help, heal that part of you, as long as you're not pushing it away or trying to repress it or, leaving it for another day, not letting yourself feel it.
Mm-hmm. I do want to add, because I feel that those that are neurodivergent, I think you're superheroes, by the way. I think you're way more powerful, and you were meant to never fit in a box. And I think I even consider myself in that box because I've always been that way, thinking outside, and I always got reprimanded. And it was almost like someone always tried to put me into this whatever mold, and I never fit.
Right.
And I think those of us that don't want to fit in that box can all identify. And we're supposed to be individuals, and we need to own that. And I think the more that we accept the fact that we're supposed to be different, and it's perfectly perfect to be imperfect, to let that label go, because
Absolutely.
we are brilliant people. And if we all were the same and in this daggone mold, I'm sorry, I'm getting worked up, but like, we shouldn't be in a mold. We have to be individual. It would be so flippin' boring if we all were because look at the people who are in the mold. They are a robot, and they do the things that they're supposed to. Come out of the box. Be different.
It's mold. Like it's. Oh,
go ahead.
Sorry,
Noah.
I was just gonna say. You can go first, T.
I was just gonna say that molds are for things that are made over and over and over again.
Exactly.
I don't fit a mold.
Yeah.
And I encourage everybody never to fit into a mold.
Right.
Yeah, don't restrain yourself. Don't confine yourself to a mold. You're allowed to be free and grow as you are, What I wanted to say was, in regards to that, Heather, it kind of reminds me, Kat, it reminds me of what you said earlier, how you said you feel like there was sort of a purpose for that certain thing happening. When somebody is grieving, oftentimes we'll try and find a reasoning for things, or like we'll try and find a purpose for something happening. And in a way, I don't necessarily think that's entirely always a bad thing, because it helps. Sometimes it can really help you come to terms with what you're grieving. For you, it was coming to terms with the fact that your parents are gone, and that can help you address that grief. For me, it was, my purpose that I put towards my grief that I experienced was I experienced this thing that gave me grief so I could help other people who are in the same position as me or have gone through similar experiences as me, and to teach them to embrace who they are, to embrace their individuality, like you said, Heather. That was the purpose that I assigned to my grief, and that helps me address my own grief and my own feelings.
Absolutely. How do we... Grieving is one thing, losing, feeling that sadness, that pain, but knowing that you have to wake up the next day, whether, like I said, grief is different, in different aspects. I mean, it doesn't even have to mean the death of someone you love. but it means the death of something.
Exactly.
So, you know, whether it was the death of your health or the death of a job that you had, you know, experienced, or again, like your individuality, things like that. So we are talking about loss, grief and loss. But when you realize, how do you wake up the next day and go to work and have to be the same person that you are? And people expect now, everybody, we know this, everybody will say, I'm so sorry for your loss, or I'm sorry for your divorce, or I'm, you know, whatever it is, or I'm sorry that you found out you have cancer. But how, and then we go on with our day, because we don't really know how to address certain things, right? We feel like if we're not going to say anything, then maybe it won't make that person cry. And that's our way of saying, I don't want to make that person cry. I don't want them to relive what it is. But the fact of the matter is, your coworker or yourself, they're going through this. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, whether, you know, you're sitting in there still giving them paperwork. Brian, how do we continue in our businesses and ourselves and our everyday lives when we are feeling so much grief and so much pain? How can we continue to have that? Let's say you, for instance, in a speaking engagement, you know, and we have to be peppy. We have to be like, let's motivate people, but yet we are still feeling that pain. How do we continue to do that?
Well, that's a great question. And everybody that's chimed in so far, we all share it at different levels. And I use it as a reminder. So I make a living out of reminding people of certain things. And I think at some degree, we all kind of do that. And I remind them of things that impacted me through my grief. And it helps me in how I handle things is going to be different than everybody on the panel here. But what I do share to whomever I have the honor of speaking to is I've gone through grief both professionally and personally and so on, like everybody in the panel here and everybody that's listening. But like you said earlier, Kat, is everything happens for a reason. And I truly believe that. And I talk about earning our life, earning our place in life. I really believe in that. When my father passed or when I lost a job and so on, I use, okay, how am I earning my life? Because everybody on the panel here has lost somebody. Everyone on the panel here or listening has gone through grief. How am I earning it for them? How am I earning it? Because I guarantee they'd like to be here with us. So I put the kind of the monkey on my back and trying to say, I need to earn it for them and for me too. But I would really want to use that as motivation, saying, hey, I want my dad back. Hey, I want somebody that close to me that just passed back, because I guarantee they would like to be here. So I want to earn it for them, not only for me, but for them too. So that's a big thing for me, is earning it. And I don't care if it's in business, I don't care if it's your personal life. I think we all have the right to be here, and we're supposed to be here. But I think, to me, I want to earn it more for them also. So that's how I deal with it, and how I get through it is, okay, Brian, I've got a grief. I mean, that's something we all share. That's a common denominator. Everybody on this panel, everybody that's listening, we share the highs and the lows of the emotions. And to me, to get through to that next level is, okay, not only do I want to feel better about myself, but I want to make sure that I'm earning the privilege that I was given to be here and to know the person that just passed or know somebody that's grieving. I want that take it to that next level. So that's how I deal with it, right or wrong, good or bad. I'm trying to earn it, and to make me feel good, to make others feel good, and to, in a sense, have them back with me and share that time, that even though I know they can't be here, but I want to earn it for them too.
Absolutely. I think you make a really good point, as far as, you know, earning it for the people who are no longer able to have that privilege of doing what you're doing. My brother-in-law, it was a very tough time. He was 16 and he became quadriplegic in a tragic accident, just messing around with his friends. And he slipped the disc area and it severed the nerve. So he became quadriplegic at 16, and he roomed with Christopher Reeve when Christopher Reeve had fell off his horse during that time. So he was at Kessler Rehabilitation Center at the time.
Wow.
And we went to visit him as often as possible. And when we talk about grieving, And I just mentioned about how grieving is the loss, the death of something, right? Now, he was still alive, but he lost everything because if you honestly, if you're sick or you're whatever it is, or you're in bed, you get up, you can still have something to look forward to. I can get up, I can, I'll go make myself a cup of coffee, I'll sit down, I'll cry a little bit, whatever, watch TV, whatever it is. He couldn't. He could not get up. He had to have everything done for him for till he was 36. And his grieving process of it, he only shared several certain things with certain people, and I was very lucky to be one of those people that he shared so much with. And his loss, was so devastating because it wasn't when he lost it when he passed. It was when he lost it at 16. And so he got to see everybody else get married, go on roller coasters, get a job, have babies, what all that other stuff, but he couldn't. And so the grief that we had to experience it was very hard to say, it's okay. It's just a bump in the road. We'll get over this. It was hard to say to him. You couldn't say something like that to somebody who you knew was never going to walk or feed themselves again. And, so it was very difficult for that part of that grieving process. We grieved for so long because of that. And when he passed, it wasn't a relief of a burden.
Right.
It was a happiness for him. Because he did not have to suffer. So I always look at that as in retrospective of sometimes losing things is good. And so, like, for instance, a job. Maybe that job just was not for you, and there was something better for you out there. And, as much as you were like, I really like my job, I get the time off that I have, I get, the work-life balance is great, the pay is good, but maybe it just wasn't for you. Or maybe, and I think of this way as, because I'm not an unselfish person, maybe someone else just needed that more. And maybe it was just time for me to say, I'm going to step aside, even though I like this. I'm just going to step aside because something I know can be better for me, and somebody else may need that job. So that's kind of how I look at that. But grieving is there's different types of grieving. And like I said, with my brother-in-law, it was a very long grieving and a different type of grieving. But we were happy for him that he is in a better place where he could now walk, run, whatever. And Brian, according to what you were saying about living for them, I don't like roller coasters. But if I had a dream, or if he came to me and said, you better get on that roller coaster, I'd be like, okay, oh my gosh, I got to do it for him. So that's kind of how I look at it. Charisse, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so I'm a processor, so often I will sit and I will listen and I observe just what's happening and what you all are saying, and then what's happening on the inside of me. And so one thought that came up that wasn't something that I reflected upon entering into our conversation today is that, a lot of what we're talking about in terms of grief and loss are circumstances that have happened to us. The thought that came up as you were talking, Kat, was what about those situations where we pause, where we make a decision to put an end to something? There's that too. There's that other side of grief and loss where you're taking in things that are happening around you, like the death or the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, the loss of a house, any numerate of things, but there's also that choice that we have where we're transitioning to a point and transforming to a point where we have to make a decision to, as you put in that example, maybe to leave a job, and that is a death that we are causing. I hope that makes sense, because
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
it's a different perspective. And how I was preparing for this conversation was as a transformational coach. My lens is always about transformation. So when I'm thinking of death, or death of anything, something that is coming to an end, death is really a transition, and it really is, in essence, a transform something from one thing to another thing. I'll share just, something, my process. I, just like you, Kat, I lost both of my parents. Both of my parents transitioned. They weren't as close together as your parents were. But I remember in that process, of losing them, how I was transformed. And in the process of them no longer being here physically, um, I had to look at myself, and it awakened things within myself, things that needed healing, things that were lying dormant that finally were coming to bloom. All of those seeds that in wisdom that they planted. Now I'm standing in this world somewhat on my own. My brother is still living, so we are still, here, and I still have relationships and family members. However, there's something different when you have those losses like that, where your parents are gone, because it's like you are embodying the best of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
The best of them. And now it is you becoming who you are really meant to be in the world. And so for me, it was about transforming and healing and looking at my own wounds, and looking at my own processes. What do I really believe? Who am I really in this world? Who do I want to be in this world? And so, for me, that was that process. Losing housing was an experience for me. And that really hit hard,
Mm-hmm.
because there was a lot of, not just sentimentality, but just identity, where you are like, okay, now I don't have anywhere to live. What am I going to do? What does that mean? What do people think? And so that was a real dark kind of period for me, because I had thoughts that I hadn't had.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to just hold space for myself and have someone that I could share those dark moments with, to hold that space for me and to walk me through that. So grief is very now.
Mm-hmm.
It is holding the space for you as you are experiencing these things that are happening to you unexpectedly, and things that you are putting an end to. And it's holding that space to, okay, who am I transforming into? And what is this bringing up for me that is teaching me? Because I think we've all shared, from what I've heard, something that we have gained in the process. And it doesn't feel pleasant, but we are gaining something that is ultimately transformative for us, that is healing for us. My mom, I'm a dreamer. Um, so she and I dreamt about both of their passings, both of their just kind of like physical and spiritual transitions. But my mom, she came to me in a dream last year in October. And you know how in the movies they'll show you some person writing in their journal, right? And they're writing a letter to someone, and you hear their voice as they're writing. That's how this dream was. And this was significant. And this is what helped me to even further reframe the transformative process, right? Transformational process. She said, baby, I want you to know how much I love you, and love is all around me, all around me. this is what it's all about. And I could see her hand in the dream, and I heard her voice. She says, unconditional love is surrounding me. And I want you to know that whatever happens in your life, whether it's people going and leaving or, things just happening that are not good, I want you to know to always remember love and hold that love in your heart, because love is the force that's most important. And I wish I would have told you so many more times how much I love you. That's how important it is. So she just began to just tell me in this dream, and I can hear her say, just love, forgive, and love. Just surrender your life to that love and how important that is. So for me, this grief process, whether it's been ending of relationships, deaths, housing, employment, I've been through those things. And even me awakening spiritually was a death to my old self.
Right.
So here we are. For me, it's transformation. And what are we bringing up that is for the highest good? And I think we've all said that there is purpose.
Right.
There is purpose.
You make a really good point as far as purpose, right? We have to have a purpose. The reason we get up in the morning, the reason, and we all have different purposes, whether it's our family, whether it's money, whether it's motivation, whether it's just, to make it day by day. We have to have a purpose. I want to spend the last 10 minutes of our discussion really talking about that loss, grief and loss in ourselves. Okay. And when I say this, for me, I say this as I am now in my 50s. I've lost both of my parents. Mortality, you think about that more often when those things happen, right? When you reach that midlife crisis in those moments, your job, you start thinking about that. You start thinking about retirement. You start thinking about, what if what all those things that you're like, I thought old people thought about these things, and that's where you're at, right? Now, this can be for any age too, because when you graduate from high school, you start thinking about these things. Oh my gosh, those last 12 years of my life went by so fast, or whatever it is, however long you were in school, and now I have to learn how to support myself. What am I going to do? Do I go to college? Do I not go to college? What? And so all that kind of is in your mind. So what I want to talk about in the next 10 minutes is how we as individuals deal with that change, that grief, that loss, the changes, the transformation in our life, right? Just the loss of yourself, you.
Yeah.
And changing who you are. Like Nova had mentioned before, like the grief of the loss of like her childhood. She never got to experience certain things. And this is a big situation for those who were in high school or college during the time of COVID. My son never got to have a graduation. My son never got to have that. He was supposed to go to Ireland for his last choir, and he never got to do it. He was looking so forward to doing these things, and for us, some people might be like, oh, well, you'll have more time. You're only 20. But those are significant things in our lives that we ended up losing, right? I mean, we've never heard of losing, nobody ever having a graduation of the whole class. I mean, unless you left school or whatever to do other things, right?
Right.
So how did we do that? How did we transform, and how did we deal with it ourselves? Anybody want to go?
When my brother died, I will say, whenever I was experiencing that grief, it was almost like, and in my work, I actually do sessions where when you basically quieten the mind, you can connect in. And our loved ones are always around us, and there are so many things that we hold on to because it feels like unfinished business. But what's coming through for me right now is just remember that they can still hear.
Right.
And even if you believe it or not, just set the intention that if there's unfinished business with those that have crossed over. It doesn't matter what it is, but if you feel like you didn't say I love you enough, or there's things that need to be said, write it out, journal it out, say it out loud, because they can hear. And then whatever, if you're meditating on it or if you're journaling it out and you start feeling like you're getting feedback, listen, go with it. Don't question it. Don't worry about it. Just go with it. And I feel that that's what helped me get through with him. Is I went through all the stages of, I was super mad. And then, it turned into, oh gosh, what if I'd have done this? And and then a lot of regret. But I allowed myself to feel that with him. And I had conversations, whether they were real or not. It helped me process the things I wish I had said to him when he was alive. So some of that is great for to have. And having sessions like the quantum healing sessions that I do, if you are having so much grief, it's such a great way to connect in. Whether you believe it or not, things magically happen when you allow. And so in order to process some of that grief, those are the moments that you can just let yourself go and connect in. But definitely journal it out. And that's how I get through a lot of anything, whether it's grieving my old self or change. I journal everything just to allow, because a lot of times you don't have someone that's there that can listen and hold space. Right. And so I don't want people to give me feedback. I just need to get my feelings out. And sometimes journaling to me feels safe.
Exactly. I feel the same exact way. I journal all the time. When I'm feeling, especially grief or feeling the presence of loss in my life, journaling is something that I've always seemed to turn to, whether that's writing in your notes app on your phone or, venting it out to nothing, or just writing it down in a journal and, keeping it. A few years ago, when I was going through the transition of, addressing my own grief of like losing that experience that I didn't get to have, that childhood that I didn't get to have, I started journaling. And one of the things that I did was I started writing letters to myself, to that version of myself, that past version of myself, that, and it really seemed to help because I would address the certain worries that I had or the certain thoughts that I was having at the time. And now going back and reading some of these, letters to myself, it's like you can see your progress with how you've sort of transformed and gone through your stages of grief, and seen how far it's carried you. But absolutely, journaling does help for sure.
Kat, you said something earlier that really struck home to me, that even something as losing a job, maybe somebody needed it more than I did. Maybe it was somebody that really was aspiring to do whatever it happens to be, whatever job it is. And I know it's easy for me to say, for any of us to say that everything happens for a reason, but I truly believe that helps me get through. Okay, I've got to grieve, and I'm not going to rush this. This is something that needs to happen for me. But what is the benefit? What is the positive that's coming from this? And I try to always look towards it. Sometimes it's easier to find than other times, but I'm always trying, okay, what's the rationale for that? How can this help me or help others in what I'm going through? So that helps me.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
The way I transformed through various things that I have lost, is each one has been a step on the path of take up more space. Just don't be, and I say this quite often, don't be small for anybody. And each thing that I have had to grieve, each loss that I have gone through and experienced, has taught me this is another step on that goal of I will be who I am. And I have transformed from somebody who always stayed in the back
Mm.
to, somebody who's emerging and coming forward and doing more and more with my life.
Mm.
Right.
So I've used it as motivation on that, hi, here I am. Take me as I am.
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna tag on to what Dee just said. It's a what you just said is so important because there's gratitude in the loss for me. Thank you for the experience of us having this time together. Thank you for teaching me how to love myself better. Thank you for teaching me how to take up more space. So there's gratitude in the loss, in the death of something, in the ending of something, because it's transforming and creating space for something else. And it's actually can teach us how to really live, which is what Dee was saying. And I just want to underscore that death and endings teach us how to really live in this now moment, live fully, live completely, and love. And I think that's the biggest thing, is to bless it. Even if it was painful, find something that was transformative for you. And that was my experience in all of these situations. And bless it. Bless it. Say thank you and be grateful for those lessons and the things that you've learned so that you can become more of who you are.
I love it. That was a great ending to our show. I think for me, this whole entire episode has taught me a lot more about myself and about grieving and about loss. It was something I didn't, grief and loss. We don't like to talk about it as much in an open space in public, but we all go through it. And for me, I always say, talk about it. Talk about it. And you will realize you are not alone. And that's the biggest lesson you will ever learn from life itself, is to know that you are not alone. And it makes this small, tiny world feel so much better to be a part of. And so before we go, as far as grief and loss go, we're going to say goodbye to the previous age. Happy birthday to
transformation,
Sharice
right?
and Brian. It is. Woo! You guys are looking forward to another transformation of another year. You will do wonderful, great things. And I hope you have a great birthday, both of you, really.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Looking forward to it.
Happy
We're
birthday.
gonna party hard, right?
We're gonna party all month, honey.
Hey, every age is important. I saw some people recently, some parents recently, and they were getting a cake and giant balloons for their daughter who was in her 30s, and I was like, I find it so sweet that parents are still doing that for their kids, regardless of age. It's good to celebrate. It's good to celebrate you're alive.
That is right. That is right. Well, have a happy birthday, Sharice and Brian, and the rest of you watching us. Thank you for joining. We hope you learned something today, and take this with you through your grief and loss, and maybe share some with you. We'll have some articles on our website, inspirertshow.com. I know Dee and Heather and Sharice have some things up on there that we're going to put up there today, to just kind of, if you want to just, go through on your own time, you are perfectly welcome to do that. So we will see you guys next month. It is May next month. We are halfway there. I cannot believe this.
I know. That's crazy.
But it was so great having you guys with me today. And I'm going to have a continued great morning because I saw your wonderful faces. So have a great month, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. See you next month.